So welcome everybody to this session on bibliographic record and physical inventory retention in ALMA. This is part of the ALMA 2024 Roadmap webinar series. What we will do today is look briefly at this PowerPoint just at the beginning of it, popping back and forth occasionally between ALMA and the PowerPoint just to get the background on what is bibliographic record and physical inventory retention in ALMA. However, primarily, we will be looking in the actual ALMA. Everything I'm showing today, unless I specify otherwise, is already in ALMA. It's not a planned development. However, at the end, we will be showing or explaining some planned developments for holdings records. But everything else, unless I specify, is already in ALMA, already ready to use. And in fact, much of what I'm showing is already in use by several institutions. What is the bibliographic record and physical inventory retention? So it allows libraries to prevent the deletion of a bibliographic record. If a bibliographic record or an item is designated as committed to retain, as we will see, it is not possible to delete it. If a physical item is designated as committed to retain, then also the bibliographic record of that physical item can't be deleted because, as we know, you can't delete a bibliographic record that still has inventory. If a bibliographic record is committed to retain and the item is not, then the item can be deleted. So it's either on the level of the bibliographic record or the level of the item, or if desired, it can even be on both. Why would an institution do this? As in the second bullet here, there are libraries or institutions who collaborate with each other, often for the purpose of resource sharing, but not only. And they agree amongst themselves, certain libraries within an institution or certain institutions within a collaborative network will decide, you keep these items and I'll keep these items. And then if we need them, we can do resource sharing or ALMA fulfillment network, etc. That's one use case. That's the second bullet. There's another case, which is the third bullet, where an institution may have rare materials or important donations or faculty publications which they do not want to get deleted. And by specifying that the bibliographic record and or item is committed to retain, they are making sure that they are preventing the deletion of that bibliographic record or the physical item. So this is more or less what I already stated, so we don't need to continue on that. And this is links to the additional documentation on this. This will be on the ALMA 2024 Roadmap Webinar Series page, as well as a link to the recording. Those of you viewing this via YouTube will see in the description of the YouTube video, you will see a link to the ALMA 2024 Roadmap Webinar Series page, and you'll be able to link to it. The ALMA 2024 Roadmap Webinar Series page, just in case somebody is not familiar with it, you can get there very easily. Simply type ALMA 2024 Roadmap Webinar Series. And let me just spell that a little different. ALMA 2024 Roadmap. Here we go. So here we have today's session. This is a link already to this PowerPoint, and the recordings will be here. The recordings will be on YouTube. I will send a link out to this page via chat, just in case anybody doesn't have it. And let's jump into ALMA now. So we have a configuration table where we can designate on the level of the bibliographic record if we want to commit the record to retain and how. So we're going to go, as in the second bullet here, to configuration, resources, collection, retention, bibliographic collection, retention definition. So let's go there. I'm in a standard Alma release here, nothing special. This is a regular February release, just like everybody has. And we'll come here to configuration on the bottom. Let me make the fonts a little bigger here. So we're in configuration and resources. Then we have this collection retention. Then we have bibliographic collection retention definition, and that's what we'll look at. Just on a side note, if you do not know where a menu entry is, you can always search for it by clicking up here on the top left and just start writing anything, like I'm writing retention and I've got it. So if you ever don't know where a menu entry is, you can also get it that way, but we know it's under resources, collection retention, bibliographic collection retention. So what do we have here? The option to add fields which will determine that the record is committed to retain. In the first case, we are saying if a 613 subfield A exists, then the bibliographic record is considered committed to retain. In the second case, we are saying if there's a 583 with a subfield A and it has text committed to retain, then it will be committed to retain. So I can add a field. I'm going to click add row. And if all I do is add a field and a subfield without a value, then that means if that field and subfield exist, then the record is committed to retain. However, if I add a row and I say, in this case, 998 with a subfield A, and I type or add do not delete, so this would mean if a 998 with a subfield A with text do not delete exists, then the bibliographic record is committed to retain. So you can make it either, as in the first row, that the field and subfield merely need to exist, or you can say if the field exists with a subfield with a specific text. So we will leave just those first rows. And let's take a picture of that because later we're going to refer to this table and we don't want to have to keep leaving our Alma searches, etc., to come into this configuration. So I'm just going to take this and let's put it on the side so we can easily refer to it later. And we'll also be able to put our examples in there. So let's just put it right here in a Word document and we're all set. So we will be referring to this later. Okay, let's even make this landscape and make it a little bigger for everyone to see. Okay. So let's now go into Alma and let's see some examples. We'll do a little test. We'll take a couple of records. We'll add the 613s. We'll add the 583. We'll add it with and without text. And we'll see how is the system behaving. So here we are back in Alma. We'll come back out of the configuration menu. And let's do a couple of tests here. So I'll do a search here for birds, Taiwan. And let's do some examples here. So 100 common birds of Taiwan. Let's say in this one here, we will say edit record. And let's say here, we'll add a 613 with any text. So we'll say, and it can be any field. I just randomly chose 613. The 583 I chose because that's actually an action note, and there are institutions using the 583 for these purposes. So let's add a new field here. We'll make this a 613 subfield A. With a little text here, do not delete this record. So, sorry about that spelling. Okay, so let's say, just so we can recall everything we did, that the title 100 Common Birds of Taiwan has a 613 subfield A with text, do not delete this record. And we'll see what happens with that. That's our first example. And let's save that. Now note, after I save it, we have a little icon here that looks like it looks like a sign of do not delete. I'll make that a little larger in case someone can't see it. So it looks like a trash can with a line through it, meaning don't get rid of me, don't delete me, because this one is now committed to retain because it meets the requirements of our table. Our table says if there's a 613 with any field, that's the first line here, with any value, 613 subfield A with any value, then it should be committed to retain. Let's now take another example, hide the metadata editor. So let's take now Avian Treasures Unique Birds of Taiwan. And let's say here that we want to add a 583. So first of all, this is our example. Title, this one. And this is going to have a 583 subfield A, also with do not delete this record. Now, it should not get committed to retain because we say in the table, the second line, that the 583 subfield A has to have text committed to retain. Let's give it a try. So we're back in the metadata editor. And here I already got an example with apricots and coconuts. We'll leave that. And we'll say new field 583, subfield A, do not delete this record, just like we did with the 613 in the other record. We save this, and we do not have the icon that it's committed to retain. And that's because we said it has to have a value which is exactly like in the table. Because it's filled in, it needs to have committed to retain. So now let's try one with that value. So let's now take our third example here, a guide to the birds of Taiwan. We'll edit that one as well. And here we'll say F8 583 subfield A. Oops. Committed to retain. So we have here a guide to the birds of Taiwan. And we have here 583 subfield A committed to retain. So this one has the exact text that we have in the table. So it should get committed to retain. Let's give that a try. Save. And sure enough, there it is. A Guide to the Birds of Taiwan is committed to retain. So the only one of these three that is not committed to retain is the Avian Treasures, and that's because we put in a 583, but not with the text that came with the table. Let's see now again how these appear in our search. So we will go to hide the metadata editor. And now you can see in the search, we also have this specific designation that the bibliographic record can't be deleted. And we can also see that if we come to the metadata editor again, and we try to delete one of these records, if we say record actions delete record, we will get a red warning on the bottom, which in this case states bibliographic title and gives the name of the title, has an indication it is committed to retain in field 583A. And if we try on the 100 common birds of Taiwan, I'm switching to that record. And here, if I try, it will tell me that the bibliographic record title, etc., is committed to retain in field 613A. And that's because we have a text in the 613A. So that's the level of the bibliographic record. We can also do that with normalization rules. For example, if I get rid of this 613 now, I'm going to say Control F6, get rid of that one and save. So it's no longer committed to retain. And I'll get rid of this one here as well, a guide to the birds of Taiwan. And we'll get rid of this committed to retain. So now again, it's save. It's not committed to retain. And this one here is also already not committed to retain. And I'll get rid of these fields. So I could take these records. Let's save. So now nothing is committed to retain. I'm going to release them. And now if we do that same search, we see nothing is committed to retain. We don't have any of those icons. I could take these records and globally change them. I can save these, for example, with a save and filter query. And I'll call this, for example, Birds Taiwan Physical Titles. And I'll call this morning session because we're going to have an afternoon session. So now I have a physical titles set. It could be an all titles set as well, which we will make committed to retain. In the metadata editor, I have, for example, a rule. I'm going to the rules, normalization rules. I'll search for rules which have a 583 in them. And for example, I have here add field 583 with a value committed to retain if it doesn't already exist. And then I have this also inside a normalization process. That's already beyond the scope of our session here, how to build a normalization process from a normalization rule. Suffice to say, for our purposes, I have a normalization process using this normalization rule. And by the way, I also have one for a 613. Add fields 613 with value do not delete. For all of these, I also have normalization rules to remove those fields. This will remove the 613 entirely. This will remove the 613 if it has do not delete in it. And then for the 583, we also have one here, remove field 583 if it has committed to retain. So we have that set, and we can say admin run a job. And then I can say that I want to run the job 583. The one add 583 committed to retain. And I'll take this Birds Taiwan Physical Titles morning session. And we'll leave that drool. And we will confirm it and we will run it. And this is going to take those 4 records, submit, and automatically add that 583 field. And of course, I could do it with 1,000 records or whatever. So it's also possible to do what I did manually via the normalization processes. Now you can see they are all committed to retain. You can see they have the sign there. Let's run that job one more time. I will say run a job. This time we will again run a 583 job, but this time we will run the one to remove that field. We'll take that same set and we will keep that drool, which is the default for that process, and we will submit. And let's see what happens now. It should remove those 583 fields. Let's do a refresh here, finalizing, and she's done. Do a search again, and now we can see they are no longer committed to retain. We do not see the icons there. Okay, so let's now see. I saw at least one chat came in. Let's see. Is the value check case sensitive? Good question. Let's do a test. One way to know for sure. So we have in our table, one more time, because now I'm going to copy it so I get it exact. Resources, bibliographic collection retention. I'm going to take this and let's see what happens. We'll come back here. Let's get our birds Taiwan. I'll take these first two of them and I will push them to the metadata editor. Now I'll go to the metadata editor, to the records. Let's take the first one, and here we'll say new field 583. And that one we're doing exactly how it appears, same case. Now I will take, okay, you see it's got the icon there in here for committed to retain. Now on this one, we will say new field 583, subfield A, and now I will make a small c here and a big R here, and I will say save. And it's not committed to retain, which means yes, it is case sensitive. Let's confirm that even more. Now I will make the C capital and the R lowercase, save, and now it is committed to retain. So yes, the value check is case sensitive, and we see here scientific proof. All right, let me get rid of these fields just so I'm fresh again. So this one here is gone and gone. We'll save that one. She's no longer committed to retain. And here, again, we'll get rid of this one. And it's committed to retain. All right. Let me see if there's any other chats. There are no other chats. So let's further look at what we've got here. There's also the ability to search by these. If I come now, let's first of all release these. Let's actually pop back to the PowerPoint just to make sure we're covering everything that we've got in here. So we saw that we can add a row to the bibliographic collection retention. We had a 613 with no value, and we had a 583 with the committed to retain. And then we tested it by adding those fields. And in the 613, we saw we could add anything. 583, we had to add specific values. We tried to delete, and we got a red error message. Not a warning, an error message that we could not delete. Here we could delete because we didn't have the exact text. We had do not delete, and it should have been committed to retain. Again, once we have committed to retain, as we have here in the 583, we can't delete at all. We also saw that in the metadata editor, we have a clear indication there. It looks like a trash can with a red line through it. Now, I will point out also, if you have records already in the system and then you go change this table, the records will not be committed to retain until the next indexing job happens or you save the record yourself. Okay, globally updating, we saw that we have a normalization rule with a normalization process, and we ran it on the set, and we saw that it automatically added the fields and now the ability to search for them. So there is an index. I'm going to go into the advanced search, and I'll search here for retain. So it's under construction right now, but after the next what is it, semi-annual, quarterly. There's a regular indexing process. It will no longer be under construction. So if I say committed to retain, it's called committed to retain under construction because it's still not officially released until the next indexing. And I will say yes. So now all of these records, there's only one, but all of these records, actually, let me do an all titles. I did a physical titles there. Now I'm going to do it on the all titles committed to retain equals yes. So now I get 4 of them. So all of these records, which by the way, have all different kinds of inventory, all of these records, for example, Gloria Steinem with a digital is committed to retain because it's got a 583 committed to retain. Just take a look at one other example. The video Gloria Steinem on Marilyn Monroe also has a 583 committed to retain. So you can also search for them. That covers the bibliographic part of the session. Before we move to the items, are there any questions or comments? Any additional questions or comments? Let's go in the chat. I don't see any. Let's just do one more check. When there's not a lot of questions, I just like to make sure everything's still live. Just let me know you still see me, you still hear me, everything's good. Could anyone answer and just say, yes, we see you, yes, we hear you, continue? Okay, people hear me and see me, great. So now we're going to move on to the physical inventory retention. So this is separate from the bibliographic. You can have a case where the physical item can be deleted. Excuse me, cannot be deleted. And you don't have to do anything to the bibliographic record. And of course, you can't delete a bibliographic record in any case that still has inventory. So by default, you can't delete a bibliographic record that has an item committed to retain. So that's inside the physical items. Let's continue with our birds Taiwan. And we see none of these are committed to retain. And let's go look at the item. So let's say items, edit. And we have a section here on the bottom called retention information, where committed to retain can be yes or no. And the retention reason can be configured by the institution. We have a default set of values, and you can add and unactivate, delete rows as you desire. So let's go take a look at that table first. It's called the item retention reason. It's in the same location as the bibliographic retentions that we saw. So again, I'm going to click on the bottom here. Let me just cancel this item. So I'm going to click on the bottom here where it says configuration. We'll go to resources. And again, we have the section on collection retention. This time, item retention reason. And these are my item retention reasons. I added the last one, the Taiwan Academic Collaborative Collection. The others are defaults. And this is what will appear in Alma in the item retention reason section of the physical item editor. These can be rearranged. Maybe I want this Taiwan Academic Collaborative Collection one on top. Let's even make that a little longer so we can see the whole thing. And that looks nice. So let's now see what's going to happen. Let's go take some of these items. We'll come back here. And again, we'll do the birds of Taiwan. Let's take this item and let's edit. In this one here, we will say item retention committed to retain, yes. Retention reason, let's take that Taiwan Academic Collaborative Collection. Let's save. I want to sign out and sign in here for a moment. Sign out and sign in. And I want to see if in that table I saved it with that value on top. If you recall, I changed the order there. So let's just get it this way. Item retention reason. Yes, I did. Okay. And physical titles, Birds, Taiwan. We'll take the second one now. Edit. Oh, let's take the first one. Edit. Okay, so we have the Taiwan. We can put in a note here. This is used by the consortium or needed for the consortium. It's a free text note. Let's take another one now. We'll take the second one and we'll edit here. And again, we'll take the Taiwan Academic Collaborative Collection. We'll say committed to retain. Let's even take a different one this time. We'll take it's a faculty publication. We don't want to get rid of a faculty publication. This is from, this is authored by faculty member, Professor Alicia Hen. All right. Save. So now we've got two of them there. And let's come in and do a physical item search now. Physical items. Birds, Taiwan. And again, on the level of the title, excuse me, on the level of the item, we're searching physical items. We again have the icon that this is committed to retain. Now, just a note, I'm going to say edit. Here, I'm going to say no, save. It's no longer marked as committed to retain. Again, I'm saying edit item, no, save. So now they're both not committed to retain, yet in the item, I do still have a value of the retention reason. So it's possible to fill in the retention reason without the radio button of the committed to retain. If for whatever reason you want to do that, one potential reason could be that you want to retrieve it via that retention reason in an ALMA analytics report, but you don't want to actually make it committed to retain with the radio button. We're going to see soon analytics reports based on the bibliographic and the physical item retention, but I'm going to remove that altogether and remove this altogether. Save. So now it has no retention reason, no retention note, and it's not committed to retain. I'll do that also on the Avion Treasures. So it has now no retention reason, no retention note, and it's not committed to retain, and therefore it doesn't have an icon here. Now, with these also, we can do a global update. We can say, I still have that set of physical titles, if you recall. So if I say now, admin run a job, one of the jobs under information update, I'm faceting now under type information update, is change physical items information. So let's say next, and let's take our set that we made earlier, and let's say here in the change retention information section, set item committed to retain, yes. Retention reason, I'm going to say Taiwan Academic Collaborative with no condition, but I could say if it's empty, if it's not empty. In other words, if there already is a retention reason, don't touch it. That would be my condition if field not empty. Excuse me, if field is empty. I only want to do it if the field is empty, I would do that. In other words, don't overwrite something. But I'm going to say unconditionally. And I'll put in a note. This is a cross-institution agreement. And I think this is with a dash, cross-institution. In any case, so I added a retention reason, a retention note, and I set them committed to retain. And I'll say next and submit. Confirm. Okay, let's refresh here. It's done. So now if we look for these, now they're all committed to retain. And if we go into one of them, such as A Guide to the Birds of Taiwan, sure enough, it's got the retention note, it's got the retention reason, and the committed to retain is yes. And on this item, if we were to try to withdraw, we can't. It says the item is marked as committed to retain and cannot be deleted. That's manually via jobs. There's no way you can delete this record. Also APIs, by the way. It's blocked for all cases of committed to retain. We can come again to the job, admin monitor jobs. And again, let's go to information update and get that change physical items information. And this time we will make the committed to retain equal no. And we'll make the values be empty. So we'll say information update. Oh, I did the monitor jobs by accident. I meant the run a job, excuse me. Okay, so type is going to be information update. Change physical items information. Birds, Taiwan, etc., etc. And now we will say no. Retention reason, I'm going to leave blank unconditionally. And the note, I'm going to leave blank unconditionally. I'm just going to choose blank just to be sure here. Okay, so this is that and back. Okay, so let's now run this. Next. Submit. Let's just make sure what we did. Okay, set that to no. Retention reason is empty. Retention note, submit. Okay, that'll be very fast. In fact, she's already done. There we go. Birds, Taiwan, physical items. None of them now have the committed to retain. And let's look at one of them. And we have removed the retention reason. We have removed the retention note. And we have changed the committed to retain to no. Let's go back to the PowerPoint here. So like we saw, we can list the different values here in the retention reason table for the physical items. That's the item retention reason table. We can change inside a physical item in the physical item editor in the committed to retain section like we did. Then if we try to withdraw like we saw, we get a message. We saw also that we can run a job to make the changes. Now, a little note here, just as an aside, there is a field called action notes. In fact, let's go take a look at it. Let me get this. And this will relate a bit to our discussion at the end about upcoming plans. But just so we're clear here, we're talking about physical items. What we showed just now is physical items, but there is also a field called the action note in the 583A of the holdings record. That's a standard mark field called action note. And the values there also, let's even go into a holdings record. There are values there which are not related to what we're going to be showing. So let me do it this way. I'm going to search physical holdings. It's our fairly new physical holding search. What exists in the 583A, just so it's clear, is not related to the retention of the item or the bibliographic record. But I want to show that there is a field already existing in the holdings record in Mark. If we come to this 008 and we come to the form, for example, there is a field called General Retention Policy according to Mark. And there are values such as permanently retained, not retained, retained for a limited period, etc. So there is already a field in there, but that is not something that relates to the actual prevention of bibliographic records, items, or holdings records for that matter within ALMA. Just so we're clear, that field exists, but it's not related to what we're showing here. It's something else. You can use it, you can search by it, but it's not part of what we're talking about here. Now, on the level of the physical item, we can also say, is it committed to retain or not? I'm now in an advanced search for physical items, and we have a index here, committed to retain, yes or no. So if I say yes here, I will get only items which are committed to retain. Let's take, for example, his Christmas gift and decadent holiday pleasures. So if I come to this item, it has a retention reason. It says committed to retain, yes, and it has a retention note. And therefore, it has the icon in the repository search that the item is committed to retain. And if I try to delete it, it won't let me. It'll tell me in red, the item is marked as committed to retain and cannot be deleted. So that is the physical item committed to retain. I'm going to stop for a moment before we get to our next topic, which is analytics, and just see if there's any questions from anybody. So let me pop into the chat here. I don't see any other questions. Okay. Caro Della Porta and Donna and Ruhama, just let me know if you still hear me all right. I single you out just because you had written recent chats. Just let me know everything's okay still. Been kind of quiet a couple of minutes. Okay, people are letting me know they still hear me. Thank you. All right, so now let's talk about the analytics. So let's first go look at two reports that look at the physical items and the bibliographic records. So I already made some reports. We'll go look at them. I pinned them to my pinned objects, and then we'll look at how they're made. So we have bibliographic records committed to retain. And these will not include anything we played with today. These are the bibliographic records committed to retain. There are 4 of them. If I come to ALMA and I do an all titles advanced search like we did before, and I look for title committed to retain and I say yes, we will get those 4 records. They're all Gloria Steinem. And that's what appears here. I'm doing this in the title subject area. Let's go take a look at this. Actually, let's go look at the physical item ones first, and then we'll go look at both reports together. So I've got another one here, physical items committed to retain. And these are all part of the Harlequin Romance series. So they have a retention reason, a retention note, has committed to retain equals yes. And if I just take a random one of these, I'm going to grab this barcode here. And if we search for this barcode in ALMA, we'll say barcode. We will see that sure enough, it is committed to retain. And sure enough, it's got the local committed to retain and the retention note about the Harlequin Romance and the committed to retain radio button yes. So let's now see, how are these reports made? And let's do this. So I will remove these tabs and let's go analytics, access analytics, because now we want to go into analytics. So let's look at those reports. and we'll see the fields that come into play here. So as far as bibliographic records committed to retain, what are we looking at here? We're saying title committed to retain equals yes. This title committed to retain is in the bibliographic details folder. So if we look at the bibliographic details folder here, we have a field called title committed to retain. Where is it? Here. Title committed to retain, and I have filtered by yes. So all you have to do is filter by yes, and you have title committed to retain. I made this in the title subject area because the title level, the bibliographic record, can have all different kinds of inventory. In fact, that's what we have here. When we did the all title search here, and we did title committed to retain equals yes, you can see this one's got digital, this has physical, this has electronic, and this has digital also. So if I want to get them all, I can't do the physical inventory. I can't do the electronic inventory. I need to do the title subject area, which includes all records regardless of inventory. And then I added these measures, which have the number of titles with physical items, holdings records, etc., electronic portfolios, so that in the results, sorry about that, went to the wrong tab, so that in the results we have, for example, that this one has physical items, this one has digital, this one has digital, and this one has electronic. So that's the bibliographic. Then when we're working specifically on items, we looked at the report physical items committed to retain. So here there are three unique fields: has committed to retain, yes, no. The retention reason and the retention note. And if we come here back to the criteria, let's see how we made it. So within the physical item details folder, there's a field called has committed to retain. We filtered it by yes. And also within the physical item details, we have a field retention note and retention reason, and we displayed those. So those appear in the physical item details. So we have here, for example, the has committed to retain. That's what we filtered by as yes here. And then we also have the retention note and the retention reason. So we made those appear. We just displayed them. Let's go take a look at the chat. So someone asks, can you use Mark 21008 subfield A to map it to a retention in ALMA if you put it in the table? Well, the Mark 21008, unless I'm misunderstanding the question, if I were to go to a holdings record, it's a control field. The 008 is a control field, so it doesn't have a subfield A, and you can't use it for the retention. However, soon I will get to the development plans. But the answer is no, you cannot use the 008 of the holdings record to map something to be committed to retain, and there is no $A in the 008, unless I'm misunderstanding the question in any case. So, no. Let's see if there's any other chats. No. Okay, so let's talk what we plan on doing. First, I'll describe it here, then we'll look at the PowerPoint, is something similar to prevent the deletion of the holdings record. Right now, there's nothing to prevent the deletion of the holdings record except when there's an item that's committed to retain. For example, I can't delete this holdings record because it has an item. You can never delete a holdings record that has an item. And I have the item committed to retain. So here it says it cannot be deleted. It has resources. And if I go to those items, view items, I can't delete that item. So by default, well, if it was committed to retain, yes, I wouldn't be able to delete it. This is on the bib record. So in any case, when there's an item, let's go get those Harlequin romance ones, just so we can see an example here. If we say physical items committed to retain equals yes, okay. So this one here, let's say I'm going to try to edit this item and delete it. I mean, this holdings record. So I cannot delete the holdings record. It says it has resources. And if I go to those resources and I try to delete this, I can't. So when an item is committed to retain, by default, you can't delete the holdings records anyway. The development, however, is to be able to say on the level of the holdings record, similar to what we did with the bibliographic record, designate a field or fields with or without a specific value, which would prevent the deletion of the record. Let's just go take a look here. Everything in analytics I already showed live. So the manner to prevent the deletion of the holdings records will be done similar to the way we did it for the bibliographic records. That means a table with the fields, with or without a specific reason or text in a certain subfield. Okay, let's see if there's any final questions. And I don't see any final questions, so we can close here. Thanks everybody for joining. And the video will be recorded to YouTube. The recording will be recorded, posted to YouTube. We'll send out a message that it's available. And it will also be available via the ALMA 2024 Roadmap Webinar Series page, which I showed how you can access that via a simple Google search. Okay, so have a nice day, everybody, and thanks for joining. Bye-bye.